do you hear me? Okay. Hey guys, do you hear me? Hey guys, do you hear me? Okay. Hey guys, do you hear me? Hey guys, do you hear me? Okay. Hey guys, do you hear me? Hey guys, do you hear me? Okay. Hey guys, do you hear me? Hey guys, do you hear me? Okay. Hey guys, do you hear me? Hey guys, do you hear me? Okay. Hey guys, do you hear me? Hey guys, do you hear me? Okay. Hey guys, do you hear me? Hey guys, do you hear me? Okay. Hey guys, do you hear me? Hey guys, do you hear me? Okay. Hey guys, do you hear me? Hey guys, do you hear me? Okay. Hey guys, do you hear me? Hey guys, do you hear me? Okay. Hey guys, do you hear me? Hey guys, do you hear me? Okay. Hey guys, do you hear me? Hey guys, do you hear me? Okay. Hey guys, do you hear me?
I'm not small.
You are small.
No.
You
I'm
are.
huge. I'm big. I got big plans.
I mean, he's actually coping. He's actually compensating for something. Like he's like this. He's like this small. This small.
I'm not small. I am a tall queen.
What? You are small.
No.
You
I'm
are.
huge. I'm big. I got big plans.
Okay.
I mean, he's actually coping. He's actually compensating for something. Like he's like this. He's like this small. This small.
I'm not small. I am a tall queen.
What?
Okay. So now we are ready to get started with third episode of fundamental series from Jeff Nippard. Uh, uh, so rep ranges and training intensity. So this is like third episode. Uh, so let's get started.
What is going on, everyone? So before we get started with the topic of today's video, which is going to be rep ranges and load, so how heavy should you go, I want to quickly let you guys all know that my Fundamentals Hypertrophy program is now live on my website. So you go to jeffnippard.com, you can check it out there. Very quickly, it's basically 3 separate routines. So it's the upper-lower split, the full body split, and the body part split, which I actually modified in the program to make it a little bit more optimized from a frequency perspective. But anyway, you've got 3 full 8-week full body programs. The program was designed for anyone with, I'm gonna say 0 to 2 years of training experience, or anyone who hasn't yet established a solid strength foundation. So if you're someone who's been kind of just fluffing and pumping in the gym for however long, this program will be suitable for you, since the goal of the program is to lay that hypertrophy foundation. For the first week of launch, I'm gonna be selling it for $29.99, and then after the first week, it'll go up to $39.99. Go check it out, and without further ado, I hope you guys all enjoy part 3 of the Fundamentals series. Okay, welcome everyone to the next installment of the Fundamentals series. Before we dig into the main topic of this video, which is going to be load and intensity, I'd like to do just a quick recap of the ladder as we've set it up so far. So if any of you guys are interested in skipping the recap, I'll put a timestamp up right here of the time you can go to where we dig into the new stuff. But just very quickly, we've set up our ladder over here, where we've got the two uprights of the ladder being safety and enjoyment. So our routine has to be safe, one that we can do over the long term, and one that we enjoy, so we'll adhere to it better. And that is what forms a sustainable approach. Next up, we've got effort. So after we've got a sustainable approach, now we need to apply effort. No matter how optimal the rest of the stuff is, if you're not exerting yourself appropriately, it's not going to do much work for you. Then we also need to apply progressive overload and keep prioritization in mind. So we want to be doing more every training week, whether that's more reps, more weight, or better technique, and so on. And also prioritization. We want to keep the goal. You want to prioritize your weak points and train in accordance with what is most important to you. And then finally up here, the top rung of the ladder, we've got the training variables. And we've already covered two of those, so volume and frequency. So volume is how much work you should be doing. And we set out 10 to 20 sets per body part per week as a good optimal ballpark for most beginners. And I actually did a follow-up video to that where I pay lip service to some newer research that suggests that perhaps higher than 20 sets could be better for more advanced trainees or those who are stalled. And then we also talked about frequency, so how you should split that volume up. And we covered, I think, 4 sample splits of how to make sure that you're training each body part at least 2 times per week. And I think my favorite out of those that we discussed was the upper-lower split, but we also looked at a full body split, which I think is good, and then the classical bro split, which I think isn't the most optimal, but does get a bit too hard of a bad rap in my opinion. And then we also looked at the push-pull leg split, which I've covered in length in another series, but like I said in the last video, I think that's a little bit more of a slightly advanced or intermediate routine. And also, if you guys are anxious to learn all this stuff before I get the videos put out, I'd recommend checking out the 3DMJ Muscle and Strength Pyramids videos. There's a
3DMJ Pyramid? What is it? Pyramid? Work in front shot. Oh, okay, so it's like training your body in 3-dimensional movement, right? So forward, backward, side to side, and traverse rotational planes. Yeah, okay.
A lot of overlap between these, and Eric Helms over there does a great job of going into a ton of detail, probably more detail and a slightly different perspective than what I'll get into here. But without further ado, let's jump right into load and intensity. So this term intensity is one that you'll see a little bit more often in the actual scientific literature, and it confuses some people because they think it means basically how hard you're training. But what it means in the literature is basically just how heavy is the weight. So we can use both of these terms interchangeably. Load, intensity, basically means how heavy are you going. And there's this age-old question in training culture whether high reps are better or whether low reps are better for putting on muscle. And you have people who are just as vocal on either side of this debate. Some people will insist that you need to use plenty of high reps to really break down the muscle and fatigue the body, and that's what sort of causes the muscle to grow. And you have other people that say you have to lift heavy weights for low reps, and that's really what creates that tension and gets the muscle to respond. And as we'll see, there's a bit of truth to both of these sides. But in particular, what I want to look at is 2 studies. So they both came out of the same research group led by Dr. Brad Schoenfeld. The first one was published in 2014, And this study compared two different groups. So they gave one group a program where they were doing 10 reps and another group where they were doing 3 reps. And just
Okay.
for a bit of context here, of course, if you're doing low reps, that means by default that you're doing heavy weight. So low reps equals heavy, and high reps equals light. So these are at the extreme, and then obviously here in the middle you have moderate reps, which you'd be using moderate weight. So you had one group doing very heavy, almost powerlifting style training, and you had another group doing more typical bodybuilding style training with 10 reps. And that was the first study. And then the other study compared, again, more like a 10 rep typical bodybuilding range with a very high rep range, so 25 to 35 reps, and that was a year later in 2015. And both of these studies found that across both groups, you saw very similar hypertrophy. In fact, to statistical significance, you saw basically the same hypertrophy.
Yeah, so basically, if we are not talking about the sport, I mean itself, like Olympics, I don't know, but in general, high reps versus low reps leads to the same result if it's just a matter of maybe time, because, for example, I think you just need to do more time to do like a lot of reps. I think that's the biggest point. Let's see what he would tell us.
With very heavy weights and low reps, moderate weight and moderate reps, and then very lightweight and very high reps. So all of these rep ranges are effective at causing hypertrophy. Now there are a couple of caveats that I'd like to highlight here. The first is that effort has to be equal between these groups. So you can't do these 10 reps sort of half-assed and really go all out on these. You probably get perhaps better hypertrophy in the one where you're exerting yourself harder. So in these studies, they have to control for effort, or the best that they can, and they basically do this by just taking all sets to muscular failure. Now that doesn't mean that all sets have to be taken to failure. We covered that in a previous video on effort. But I think that you should reserve failure for the last set of the last exercise for a given body part. However, I think that you need to be within some reasonable threshold of failure, and usually that's...
Okay, so basically, again, we are talking about the approach when we need to reach the case when basically our body is no longer able to complete any exercise. So that's like maximum effort that you can do. That's interesting.
Leaving no more than, let's say, 2 to 3 reps in the tank. So I would guess that if you were leaving 2 to 3 reps in the tank, then you should see similar hypertrophy across a broad spectrum of rep ranges. The other important caveat is that these groups have to be volume matched. So we know from the last video that volume is probably the main driver of hypertrophy. And so what we can say is that as long as effort and volume are matched, then you can see the same hypertrophy across a wide spectrum of rep ranges. So I would say that the very heavyweight low rep camp and the high rep lightweight camp both have validity to their arguments. They're both right in that they can both cause very significant hypertrophy. Now, one thing that I also want to mention is that there is a difference between strength and hypertrophy in these studies. So in this series, we're focusing mostly on muscular development. However, if you do care about strength development, you do have to lift heavy weight. So in both of these studies, the lower reps, heavier weight groups gained more strength. So that's a very important thing to keep in mind. However, if your goal is simply hypertrophy, we do know from this body of research that you can achieve significant muscular growth with a wide spectrum of rep ranges. With all of that said,
so I'm basically building the studio here in my basement because I wanted to record my progress, because currently I'm like 125 probably, and I don't like it. It's bad for my health, it's bad for my family, and to be honest, the reason of this issue is not my health issue, it's just the my habits, my routines, that I don't follow like usual average person routines. I mean, basically I spent like a lot of time near a computer, but at the same time, as I said in my previous videos, I have to, because I am the only one who is getting money. And okay, I'm not ideal software developer, but I'm getting quite good money, but at the same time I understand that I'm getting, or I'm at risk to be fired, because I'm not progressing as much as I should. I mean, I need to learn a lot of things, and basically my goal is to develop the game. But guys, I don't know how I can do it, but I wanted to learn how to develop the game, because I have one dream, and it's just, you know, it's a lot of things from scratch, because I need to learn the 3D modeling. I simply have no money to order this work to be done by third-party guys. So yeah.
You'll often hear coaches and personal trainers and even evidence-based or science-based trainers talk about a magic rep range. I don't know if there's really a magic rep range, but at least a practical rep range. And that's usually something like 6 to 15 reps or 6 to 12 reps or what have you. And that's kind of been classified as the sort of hypertrophy rep range. And I think that this actually holds in practice. I think that something like 3/4 of your training volume should come in this 6 to 15 rep range. And you should reserve sets that have reps higher than 15 reps, so 15 plus rep sets, and less than 6 rep sets for only about 1/4 of your total volume. You can split it up between these two different rep zones. And there are a few main reasons for this. So down here, I've got a continuum where you've got 6 to 15 reps here in the middle, and then over here, you'd have more than 15. So this would be 15 plus, and then over here, you'd have less than 6. So less than 6 over here. And as you start to get more up towards this high-end rep zone, you run into the issue of accumulating fatigue. If you've ever done really high rep sets, especially on, say, the squats, it's extremely taxing. You get a ton of lactate buildup. You tend to be really sore for a long time after the training session is done. And so in this sense, it can really impede your recovery. So fatigue becomes an issue as you start to get higher in the rep zone, which is why you want to use it more sparingly. And then on the other hand, when you get into the lower rep zone, so less than, say, 6 reps, I think you do increase your injury risk. As a powerlifter myself, I've sustained my own share of injuries, and I know it's very common in the powerlifting community to see that happen. And I think that that is a function of the very heavy strength-focused training. If it gives you similar hypertrophy, so if you can get similar hypertrophy with 3 reps and 10 reps, but you have a lower injury risk over here with the 10 reps, then the 10 reps is the more rational choice.
This is very important difference, because currently I wanted to get more endurance. I wanted to get more confidence in myself, and I don't need to go strange way, because currently it's just about getting extra fat out of my body and getting like my body ready for next step, because I think first of all you need to get endurance, and then you can get your strength, in my opinion.
And interestingly, in this study, they did find that the dropout rate amongst their subjects was way higher in the 3 rep group. So you had people either getting injured, or they just couldn't handle the training because it was just too heavy weight and their joints couldn't take it. So they had a lot of subjects drop out here, but not many in the 10 group, if any. So your injury risk is greater. Also, actually accumulating volume can be problematic in those heavier rep ranges. So in order to match volume in this study, for example, the people doing the 10 reps only had to do 3 sets. But the people doing 3 reps had to do 7 sets. Now, if you take that even to a greater extreme, imagine you were doing only 1 rep max training, you would have to do so many sets. So even just to match, say, a 10 rep set, you might have to do 10 sets in order to get there. So your workouts are going to get very long, and they're going to be very high in terms of a set volume. And so actually getting enough volume in can be problematic. But for all that, there are a couple potentially good things about using the higher and lower rep zones. So for the higher one, it does train muscular endurance a little bit better. And by that, I basically mean that you're going to be more fatigue resistant. So basically, when you train in this rep zone, you might be able to handle more volume and not get quite as tired quite as easily because you've built up that sort of work capacity from the high rep stuff. Also, it's a little bit controversial, but we think that metabolic stress, the buildup of metabolic byproducts, can signal for hypertrophy. So including some high rep stuff might be a good idea from time to time. Like I said, use it sparingly. And then the heavier stuff can be helpful from a periodization perspective. So periodization is something we're going to get to in a later video. But basically, I think that if you occasionally do very heavy training, that can allow you to be stronger and push more weight in that sort of hypertrophy zone. And so in theory, that would mean more tension on the muscle and more hypertrophy overall. So if you do want to dip down in these lower strength zones once in a while, or even periodically in the regular routine of your program, I think that that's okay. It's just that when it gets excessive, you can run into these problems over here. With all of that said, I think that the bottom line here is that using a spectrum of rep ranges is actually a good idea. But the majority of your volume should come in this 6 to 15 rep zone. And I would call this the practical rep zone for hypertrophy. So guys, that's gonna conclude this one on load and intensity. I think I'm actually gonna wrap this video up here and cover the remaining topics in separate videos, just to keep these a little bit more digestible. So if you found this to be informative, please leave me a like. If you do happen to be new, don't forget to check out the other 2 videos that preceded this one in the Fundamentals series. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys all here in the next video we're going to talk about exercise selection. So are certain exercises better?
Okay, so the next video would be what are the best exercises for muscle and strength. But that would be probably tomorrow. Currently, I'm just getting or trying to wrap everything in my mind. So I have a lot of things to discover, to reinvent myself, because you know I was like addicted to computer, and I'm addicted. I was playing poker, but it's not good for my health, for my family. I'm getting no new knowledge from this, and I'm basically nowhere. I just wanted to reinvent myself and become better person for my family, and become better person for the world, probably, because but yeah, for myself probably that's the biggest issue, because I wanted to love myself properly, I wanted to love my family, and only this real love when something inside of your heart, when you are a good person, you can do something good for the world, I think. So yeah, that's it. See you like in few minutes. I'll just grab the tea and switch the streaming category, because I will be streaming currently in few